G'day and welcome to another episode. My name is Daethstro, the Aussie Geek, and today we are looking at the reissue G1 Outback. Now, if you haven't seen the video also released today, I did another episode of the Tumblr part 48. It wasn't very long, so I thought, you know what, let's bring back the mini bots again. So here we have Outback. And I do not have the original intention for this, which is, of course, Brawn. Still hoping and waiting for that. There is a few mini bots I don't have, so sadly about that. But here we do have Outback, and unintentionally I have three Outbacks. I have this one, I have the Titan's Return, and I have the Fans Toys. So yeah, I've got three Outbacks. So nothing like representing the home country. Go Australia. So here we go. So he isn't too bad. He's actually pretty tall for a mini-bot. I would love to get G1 Warpath and just compare him in size because, you know, this guy has very long legs. He really does. Articulation is a little bit, give or take. I suppose it's actually a little bit less. But yeah, it's not half bad, honestly. Although I will say the transformation, I would say for first-time kids playing with this, may have unintentionally caused breakage, and I'll show you why when we get to it. But he does look pretty good. He does have his gun, which can plug into his spare wheel, but he can't hold it. Now, excluding Warpath, I want to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't have all the mini-bots, he might be the only one, excluding Brawn, obviously, because this is a repaint, remold of Brawn, to have a gun. Swerve didn't have one. Gears didn't have one. I would assume Power Glide didn't have one. Bumblebee Cliff Jumper definitely didn't. I don't think that Beachcomber would have. So as far as I know, he's the only one who had a gun, which I find surprising. So let me know if you had G1 Brawn, if he came with it too. And I won't lie, it always made me think of Megatron's fusion cannon. Like, you take that bit off, and that looks like Megatron's fusion cannon. And I always remember back to the season 1 episode, I want to say it was the Hoover Dam, where Brawn actually gets his hands on Megatron's fusion cannon and quips that when after he fires and I think shoots actually Megatron, he goes, now that was a kick, which is funny because A, that's classic Brawn, and B, I never actually have guns on my Brawn because as far as I'm concerned, he'd prefer to go in with fists and beat the crap out of everyone. Outback really should have really had a disc. For some reason, they gave him a disc in season 3. And he was, of course, buddies with Blaster, which was pretty cool. Yeah, give Blaster an extra mate. Like, I don't even know who really... Blaster really stuck around with Cosmos, so I can only assume Cosmos must have died after season 2. But there is that. But yeah, he does look pretty good. Articulation is a bit hit and miss, although I do love the fact that he seems to have something of a smirk. Yeah, why not? As for articulation, and I was going to say that he has more, but I think he has legs. His arms can do a full 360, but it starts clipping on his hip. You can't actually get his arms down all the way unless you fold them like that, and then it's basically putting them behind his hips. He does have a little in and out, but that's more for transformation, so you can fold them in like that if you want, and it really only works in this mode because things are going to get in the way if you try to fold them back. Head, it doesn't do nothing or anything, no waist, big surprise. He does have leg rotation, but due to the way his legs are designed, it can't go any further because of his backpack, and it can't do a full 360 because of his arms. So it can get up that far, get back that far, and can't go out. It does, however, have a slide. You can just make it out here, so you can slide that up if you want, but then that impacts his arm rotation. So it does restrict that. So it's just easier off on the other way down. So that at least his arms can go forward. So there we go. And there's no feet and everything. Although he does have fairly stable feet, really. You know, if you get him just right. And now that I've probably shifted him, and I think I've moved part of his hip, there you go. He does stand up pretty well. He really does, despite the fact having barely any feet. So there we have that. Right, let's get down to transformation, and then we can do the rest of our comparisons. So what we're going to do first is we're just going to flip the arms around like so. And before we go pressing anything in, we need to get these legs at a certain angle. So we want to bring this down, and it's going to force the slider to go forward. You need to push it back. The legs are independent. So then you can bring this down. Actually, I might need to bring the leg a little bit further around. Just keep that leg pressed back. No, I did that wrong. See, this is what I meant by it's a little bit iffy. So sort of angle and push that in. That's better. So it's sort of going to have trouble clearing here, but you need to get it roughly around there. So then we can bring this up. Push that back as far as it'll go. Bring it up. You will have a bit of clearance here, which is actually going to, where are you? I want to say it's under here, somewhere where it sits. So just keep that back. You're going to have to clear it a bit and just keep pushing it back and up. And that gets you one leg done. And I'll do this one much, much better. So slide that back, press that in, and then rotate and slide, rotate and slide, and under it goes, and there is Outback in his vehicle mode. So yeah, I would per se to say that any first time kids either would have broken the legs or most likely would have broken the arms. So I think that was a slightly iffy part of the transformation. Clearance is basically the problem on show. But the fact that they didn't change it from Brawn to Outback, I can only assume it wasn't that big of an issue. I would say that I would have liked this window here and this one here and maybe even this to be painted black. But the fact that we got the front done is, you know, it's as it is. We do have the classic, I can't remember if it's a W or from M, which was a hint at what they were in a past life. And I'm completely blanking on what the, it wasn't micro change and it wasn't Diaclone. It was something else. I cannot remember what it was. But surprisingly, Outback kept it. I'm assuming just because they reused the mold. Brawn had it, would have had it. Swerve and Gears had it. Bumblebee didn't. Cliffjumper didn't. I think it was just those four, I think, had the W emblem on it, and I can't quite remember at this moment what that was representative of. God, my tongue's not working today. He does have our rub sign, and I don't know how this is going to go. But just make it out. Here's an Autobot. It's not that cold in here, but my touch isn't very hot either. So there is that. It does roll very well. I'm surprised at this, honestly. Now, I admit this is before the whole movie versions. So I can only assume that if they release this guy again, that would be just grey plastic. So there is that. Now, as for size comparisons, here he is with Windblade. I'm having a doozy trying to keep this focused. There he is with Windblade. So obviously he's very tiny, but he's a mini bot. So what are you going to do? And of course, here he is with Titan's Return Outback. And he doesn't have the gun at all. And I think the port would actually be too big to plug in there. But I think it's supposed to go in here. And of course, he has the whole open gimmick and he doesn't have nothing. So there we go. Although things are pretty reasonably where they're supposed to be. Once again, this guy is a recolor remold of Brawn, so there is that. So, yeah. There we go. And we'll save the final size comparisons for robot mode. Alright, so let's get this guy transformed. We can leave the gun where it is. It's up to you if you want to leave it in there or take it out. It's up to you. But it obviously, as you would have seen, doesn't hinder the transformation. So we're going to bring this down. And you basically want it relatively to line up sort of there. And then you can get your nail under here to get that out. Like I said, that's where I would say potential breakage, because if you angle this in any other way, you're forcing it and pushing it, you're going to break that. So then we can bring the leg down and slide and rotate that around, and that gets us our arm where we want it. Chrome fists, which is nice. Do the same here, bring that down, line that up the best you can. Get your nail under there. If it's not coming through, it's because of that not lining up properly. So bring that out, bring that up, bring that around. Just pull that down, not too hard, but just enough that it will keep things in place. And make sure that's out far enough that you're going to be able to get your hand around. And there is Outback back in his robot mode. Quick, easy, simple, beautiful. I think I've said it in a few past reviews. There are some times I wish that more mainstream figures were as basic as this. Prior to posting this video, making this video, my nephew actually got a whole bunch of one-step changes, and they feel like the original mini-bots. They call one-step changes, but there's more than a few steps. Beg my pardon. So there we go. Now we can get down to final size comparisons. Here he is with MP10. And put him back there a little bit. And we'll tilt up. And as you can see, he's teeny tiny compared to Prime. Surprisingly, he actually comes up to his knee, which is nice. And we'll lift the camera up for this, because why not? So that way we got a little bit more height. So here he is. We'll put him in the middle. Here he is with Titan's Return Outback. And he's actually just shorter. He is just shorter in robot mode. He's like a hair shorter, which is absolutely hilarious. That's rather surprising. The actual original Minibot is almost the same height as the Titan's Return Minibot. And of course, Fans Toys Aussie, their Outback, which I was so looking forward to getting. I was so happy I got him, even though my knee's a little bit So we have 3 versions of Outback, and once again, I still think the gun looks like the Fusion Cannon, just with an added barrel piece. So yeah, so there is all the Outbacks all together. They look really, really good together. I will say in hindsight, and I've got to actually look at the cartoon, I'm pretty sure that he did have the grey visor, but I think he would have actually been better off with the blue visor. And I don't remember it being a face swap part. So there we go. So I'm just going to leave them all there. So if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like this video, give me a thumbs down. I promise you it will not hurt my feelings. Subscribe, ring that bell, leave me a comment. And apart from that, thanks for watching. I'll catch you later.